Is WWE burying one of its most beloved babyfaces? That's the growing sentiment among some fans lately, especially those watching closely as Jey Uso's momentum seems to have taken a sudden nosedive. Just a few short weeks ago, the man who once lived in the shadow of Roman Reigns had risen to the very top. The chants of Main Event Jey weren't just ironic or aspirational, they were earned. He was the World Heavyweight Champion. The torch had seemingly been passed, and now, he's title-less, defeated, and out of the King of the Ring tournament. But before we rush to throw dirt on the main event era, maybe it's time to step back and look at the full picture. Let's rewind. Jey Uso reached the top of the Raw mountain in a way few predicted and even fewer expected WWE to actually follow through on. His world title win felt like validation, not just for him, but for every fan who believed he had earned his spot. Jey had proven, through sheer charisma, crowd connection, and emotional storytelling, that he wasn't just a tag team guy. He wasn't just Roman's cousin. He was his own man. He was a main event level performer. But then the title was taken off him just as quickly as it was placed around his waist. He lost cleanly to Gunther in a brutal match on Raw. Gunther, who's already earned a reputation as the most dominant in-ring competitor of the past few years, proved once again why WWE trusts him with big moments. And to be fair, losing to someone like Gunther is not the same thing as getting buried. In fact, losing to Gunther and still looking like a warrior can often elevate a performer even more than a win against a mid-tier opponent. Jey didn't come out of that match looking weak. He came out looking like a fighter who just got outclassed on the night. And in pro wrestling, that's okay. Not every loss is a burial. Not every setback is sabotage. Sometimes, it's just part of the story. Still, the chatter didn't stop. In fact, it got louder when Jey lost again, this time to Cody Rhodes in the Raw finals of the 2025 King of the Ring tournament. Now fans were convinced. 2 big losses in a row? Clearly, WWE is done with Jey. Clearly, his push is over, or so the narrative goes. But here's the reality. Cody Rhodes is on a rocket ship to SummerSlam, where all signs point to a showdown with John Cena. The King of the Ring tournament wasn't just about crowning royalty, it was a plot device. It was designed to give Cody a legitimate reason to challenge for another championship, to add to his growing legacy after finishing the story at WrestleMania. And even then, it's not like Jey was squashed. The match between Cody and Jey was a main event in every sense of the word. It was back and forth. It was filled with emotion, counters, and borrowed finishers. Jey Uso hit Crossroads. Cody responded with an USO splash. It took multiple finishers from Cody to finally put Jey down. If this is your definition of a burial, then I don't know what to tell you. Besides, let's not forget that Jey wasn't even originally projected to be part of the tournament. His inclusion alone was a surprise. His making it to the finals? A bigger one. If WWE wanted to bury Jey Uso, he wouldn't have sniffed that bracket, let alone made it all the way to the end. But let's talk about what Jey himself has said. In a recent public appearance during the SummerSlam kickoff event at Fanatics Fest, Jey was asked who he wanted to win the upcoming match between Gunther and Goldberg. And you'd think someone who just lost his title to Gunther might want to see him dethroned. But no, Jey wants Gunther to win. And the reason why is important. I got to go with Gunther right now. He said, Gunther is the better man, right? We've gone back and forth. I got a lot of respect for Gunther. I never stepped into the ring with Goldberg before, so my hat's off to him. But I want Gunther to win. I want Gunther to get past Saturday night's main event so I can run it back one more time with him. I gotta knock that wall down for me to get to my next level. That's not the voice of a buried man. That's the voice of a fighter, of someone who's still chasing greatness, still thinking long-term. Jey sees Gunther as his measuring stick. He wants the rematch, not because he's desperate, but because he knows that beating someone like Gunther is the next level. That's not defeatist thinking, that's ambition. Now, let's address the Goldberg thing, because it does raise eyebrows. Reportedly, WWE wanted Gunther vs. Goldberg to be for the title, even though Goldberg has made it clear this is his final match. So, what happens if Goldberg wins? Does he retire with the belt? Does he hand it over like a participation trophy? It's a logical mess. And yeah, it probably would have made more sense for Jey to retain until after that story played out. But again, Jey's title reign wasn't about logistics. It was about the moment. WWE gave him a defining achievement. They gave fans a payoff for years of loyalty. And when the time came to move on, they didn't bury him, they transitioned him into something new. So where does Jey go from here? Is another world title in his future? Honestly, probably not. That's just the truth. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Not everyone is meant to have multiple world title reigns. Some guys are better suited to being the emotional core of the show. They can still headline, they can still move merch, they can still electrify a crowd, and Jey Uso checks all those boxes. The reality is that WWE sees him as a utility player, a valuable one. He's over, he's respected, but he's not Cody Rhodes, he's not John Cena, he doesn't move the room in quite the same way. That doesn't mean he isn't a star, it just means his role is different. And let's be real, how many people even expected Jey to become world champion at all? If you had asked the average WWE fan 2 years ago if Jey Uso would one day hold the world title on Raw, most would have laughed, not because he lacked talent, but because WWE just didn't operate that way. They didn't used to reward guys like Jey, but now, they're more open, they're more reactive, they gave him a shot. That alone says a lot. And for those drawing comparisons to LA Knight and Sami Zayn, here's the truth, LA Knight probably should have gotten a world title by now. He checks all the boxes: charisma, crowd connection, commercial appeal. Sami Zayn? He had a white-hot run with the Bloodline story, but he never really fit the world champion mold long-term. Jey Uso exists somewhere in the middle of those two. Not quite the breakout megastar that Knight is, but more credible as a world title threat than Zayn ever really was. WWE didn't bury Jey Uso, they gave him the biggest run of his career. They let him main event multiple Raws. They put a title on him, they showcased his talent. And now, they're letting him chase, they're letting him rebuild. That's how wrestling works. If every star stayed on top forever, there'd be no room for anyone else. Look at guys like Seth Rollins, he's had highs, he's had lows. Roman Reigns disappeared into mid-card purgatory for years before becoming the tribal chief. Drew McIntyre was released from the company and returned a completely different performer. These things take time, the fall is part of the climb. The Main Event Jey chapter isn't over, it's evolving. It's maturing. Jey doesn't need a title to be relevant, he's proven that. And now, he's entering the phase of his career where he can lift others up while still chasing his own redemption. So no, Triple H didn't bury him, Cody Rhodes didn't bury him, Gunther didn't bury him, the popcorn guy in Section 112 didn't bury him. Jey Uso is still very much alive and kicking, and if you're still chanting yeet when his music hits, then you already know the truth. The era of Main Event Jey might be transitioning, but it's far from over. It's just getting started.